So hey there, welcome everyone to my run of Peggle Deluxe. I will be doing I will be doing any percent of this game, and I'm joined here by Satan himself and Poetry Stud. They'll be doing commentary with me. So
Hello.
say hi to you if you want.
Hello, everyone.
So yeah, and it's most likely they'll have to handle most of the commentary for me because this is one of those annoying super high improvisation based speedruns, which is kind of annoying to like have to divide your attention between like the game and the commentary. So yeah, without further so yeah, that being said, I think we can get going. So I'll get started then. 3, 2, 1, and go. So yeah, this is Peggle. We shoot a ball through this pachinko board. It's filled with blue and orange pegs, and we need to hit all of the orange pegs to beat the level. And we're gonna do that 55 times. And that's the run, basically. That being said, there's quite a big elephant in the room here. The distribution of those orange pegs is 95% random. Which, of course, basically means that I can't just rely on set. I usually can't super rely on set strategies, except for like the first few shots, such as these two, where I'm gonna do a few angles that I know are gonna hit these slides nicely. In the case of this level, that clears out most of it quite nicely, and then we can just pick off everything else. So yeah, after that, the next level is we're gonna see something interesting though. Basically, while the pegs are random, the actual physics is essentially deterministic. So what I can do here is I didn't quite get it. So basically, if you make sure you can hit the exact pixel you want, you can, in theory, predict what path it's gonna take. In that case, what I was going for is something that would just be a bit nice to get. Although in this case, fortunately, it's not such a big deal that I missed it. We actually see something interesting in this level, and that is the addition of the green pegs. These activate special power of the master that we're using. For these first few levels, we're going to be using Bjorn. And actually, things are kind of annoying here.
I think Bjorn is probably the most classic master that most people recognize too.
Yeah, so Brass is kind of trying to rescue this level because sometimes 1-3 will do that to us.
Nice.
And you'll see them basically shooting the ball into that bucket down at the bottom of the screen. Oh, look at that. They finished the level. And that will give them more balls to add to that Ballatron counter you see in the top left of your screen. There are two ways to add to that Ballatron counter. One we just saw with the ball bucket, and the other one we just saw now with points. If you earn enough points, and that can be done by hitting enough pegs, you can get a free ball in one shot. So you'll sometimes see Brass aiming for this new purple peg, which gains a lot of points in order to basically do that, to rescue a level or just add more balls so that they can be more
Yep. Generally, the biggest, just as a general note about speedrunning this game, generally the biggest time loss is going to be losing levels, and pretty much, even at the very top levels of Peggle speedrunning, it is generally pretty uncommon to go through the whole game without a fail or two. So it's just one of those things that kind of trying to incorporate. You obviously want to go fast through the levels, but you also need to make sure that you are playing safe enough so that you don't run out of balls and then have to redo a level.
Yeah, and of course, as we talked about before, the fact that orange pegs are somewhat random within the level means that you kind of have to make those calculations on the fly. It's a very dynamic speed run where you have to really be engaged the whole time. It's pretty cool and different every time to watch.
Yep. And I guess I'll take a little bit of time here to explain something that brassbeat mentioned a few.
Actually, I want to make a quick note of something, which is about the next level, essentially. Basically, like the orange pegs, the green pegs are usually in a random position, but for some reason it happens that in specifically when playing from a new file, this isn't always the case in every level. The green peg you just saw here, that one's actually gonna be there every single time, which if you saw the new power that we get from in this level, it's actually kind of a nice thing to take advantage of. There's several things you can do with it. In my case, I go for a slightly riskier improvised approach, although currently the way things are going are quite poor, so I think I'll just have to tank an L here. Maybe if I can get lucky, I can still beat the level, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, this level, again, it is pretty common that any given run is going to have a couple fails, even at the very top levels of Peggle. So this one here definitely can be pretty tricky, even with the kind of strategies going on and everything. Certainly, many a run is lost to 2-1 here.
Yeah, Jimmy's levels are a little bit infamous for certain levels being a little bit too early in the game in terms of their skill difficulty for placing in the game. And 2-1 is most definitely one of them, and we will be seeing another one later. You'll probably know what it is if you see it, because it looks crazy.
Yeah. Now, while brassbeat is getting through this level here quite handily, now, I guess I can kind of... Oh, that was a good shot, yeah.
Oh, wow. Kick the bucket. Why don't you?
Yeah, so brassbeat has kind of mentioned already and how there are certain strategies we could use. And generally, these can be kind of divided into just a couple types, but they all have the same goal of trying to make the opening couple shots of a level more consistent. Again, to avoid losing levels as much. The most common types are going to be tap shots and pixel shots. Then there's kind of other variants on that. Saint herself, do you want to talk about, I guess, tap shots first, maybe?
Sure. This is kind of my domain. So as we discussed earlier, Peggle has a deterministic physics system. So that means if you aim at the same place every time, you're going to get the same results every time, which is very useful for us in the beginning of the level. So we can set up some of these shots that we know we're going to do the same stuff every time. One way to do this is basically to anchor either to the left or right side. You in certain levels, not this one, but in certain levels, you'll see brassbeat aiming all the way to the left or all the way to the right, and those will be the same shots every time. But what you can also do is aim all the way to the left and all the way to the right, and either scroll your mouse wheel or tap on your arrow keys to be able to make the same shot every time as well. So there are certain shots we'll see that actually end up being really powerful with this strategy, and because you know where this ball is going to go every time, you can even time the bucket so that you get a free ball with it as well. Most top runners don't do that as much because it can slow you down, but it's a really good way to learn these openers if you're starting out.
Yeah, and so there's a whole a whole domain of Peggle strat finding, strat creating. Satan herself is one of the key ones who has found a lot of these tap shots and kind of was the early adopter of that. Brassbeat as well here, of course, and plenty of other runners. And one thing that's kind of neat about that is within the community, it's one of those things that we're all playing the same levels, we're all generally having the same basic gameplay, and so finding a strat is something that a beginner player could do or an expert player could do both equally well, and it just comes down to finding stuff that works.
Yeah, so if you want to make your own mark on the game.
Basically, I had to restart the level a whole bunch here because of this strat that you just saw that I was trying to sort of utilize. You may have noticed already that the multi-ball, it actually makes the peg immediately disappear when you hit it, which is kind of a unique mechanic of multi-ball in particular, and often tends to mess with these kinds of slide strategies that we'd want to use.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a really good example of a pixel shot poetry if you want to go from there.
Yeah. So pixel shots, unlike the tap strat shots that we talked about before, pixel shots are generally where, you find a specific pixel on the screen, and if you manage to line up your cursor with the same pixel every time, brassbeat has done a few of these already in the run, you can generally get, again, the same shot every time. Of course, as brassbeat was saying, sometimes you may need to reset levels a couple of times because you might have certain characters' abilities that get in the way of that. And we are on, in this case, the last level of the second character of the game, Jimmy Lightning. This is the other one that Satan herself was kind of referencing as being a bit of a difficulty spike, you could say, in the early game at least. And this is to kind of, for anyone who isn't familiar again, the game is 55 levels long, and it is split into sets of 5. So this is the final one, Jimmy Lightning. After this, we'll be seeing the character Cat Tut.
It's this?
Yep.
Nice.
And so that is one of the trickier levels of the early game done. And lots of times, just like with how it happened to brassbeat there, sometimes that last level 2-5 can come down to just the last couple shots, and you might be cutting it close because it is just a tough level.
Yeah, I like yarn, is what Cat Tut says.
Yeah.
Cat Tut's pyramid power basically extends the edges of the ball bucket. You'll see it sometime soon here. And you might also notice that it's a little bit slow. So the cat split tends to be one of the slower splits in people's runs. But Brass is going to get through it just fine.
Yeah, Cat Tut is one of those splits early on where it's certainly one of the things you're just kind of waiting for the more interesting powers of the other Peggle masters to show up, and it's one of those things where they Cat Tut is certainly not. I don't think Cat Tut is really anyone's favorite character. Okay.
By the way, this level has probably the hardest pixel shot that we go for currently.
Ooh, got it.
Looks like you got it there, yeah.
If that sounds like it would be incredibly hard to find, you'd be right. So, in fact, we found this by essentially brute forcing every possible first turn pixel shot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy on our Discord who goes by Smiling Mux who did that for every level. And what's interesting is to this day we're still finding interesting new strategies from those from the results that he made that they made at the time, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and I guess I could, I think Brassbeat deserves a lot of credit too for being one of the ones who, like you said, Smiling Marks is one of the people who has gone through and really kind of delved into the underbelly of how the game works. But Brassbeat as well here is one of the key people, I would say, who has really dug into the kind of deeper mechanics of Peggle to kind of see what's going on, how we can kind of abuse the mechanics to play quicker.
Yes, there's a lot of Peggle technicians on the scene.
Yeah.
They're very, very helpful for us.
Yeah, I guess we can mention one of those here while Brassbeat is getting through the kind of the lull of the Cat Tut levels. The one that Brassbeat, the only kind of true skip, you could say, that happens in Peggle, at least in this category, the main category of the game, is one that Brassbeat did find, which is, we most of the time just call it dialogue skip. Because, well, when you finish a level, there's a dialogue window, or, well, there's a box that pops up that says next level. After you click on that, there is a dialogue from the character on the next screen before you can begin the next level, normally. But it was discovered that you can actually completely skip that dialogue box, and it saves you only a single click, but it is one click across for every 55 of the 55 levels, as well as being one of those things where sometimes if you're immediately going to be setting up for a shot at the start of the next level with a pixel or anything like that, you would have to move the cursor from one side of the screen to the other, and it might take longer to line up. All in all, it's a minor skip, but it does save probably a few seconds on average over the course of a hour-long run.
Yeah, and the way it's performed, just hit left and right mouse button as you complete the level.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, is that it was kind of hiding in plain sight. It is actually literally just performed by hitting, instead of left-clicking on the next level button, you both left-click and right-click at the same time. So that's the nice thing about it, is the only skip in the game that is really widely used is one that anyone can use without any practice at all. So.
Actually, there's a second thing you can do, which is so hidden that many runners, as you can tell, forget that it exists. Which is basically when you're aiming, you can like right-click to fast forward the level. It turns out
you can do
that if you have right-click held, if you still have fast forward held while you're shooting, you get 2 extra frames of fast forward that you shouldn't have.
Yeah. To be clear, you normally can't fast forward once the ball is live, once the ball is shot. You can fast forward between shots. Normally, you can't fast forward while the ball is mid-shot. But yeah, what Brassbeat's saying is that if you do right-click on at the same time when you shoot, you can get technically a bit of skip time or fast-forwarded time there as well. So.
Yeah, you can do the math, and it ends up saving about a seventh of a second for every shot.
Yeah.
Which, from experience, usually you need about 600 shots to do the run.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
You can do the math. You get about 1:20 of time save combined.
It's one of those things that a lot of stuff like that, it really starts to add up when you over the course of 55 levels. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this would be a good time to talk about best practices then, after we describe Splork's power, which you just saw used.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are now in one of the strongest characters, I think most people would say, of the game. Let's see if we could talk about Splork.
Yeah, definitely. Splork, who I headcanoned as Envy. Basically, when you hit the green peg, it explodes all the pegs around it in this big explodey fashion. And of course, this can be really useful for levels where a bunch of pegs are gathered together in a really close space. So Brassbeat didn't reset this level layout because in the top left circle, you can see that we have a green that they could bounce off the wall and rather easily hit. So that means that entire ring will just be destroyed at once. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And going along with that, for a character like Splork, where it does a very specific thing that can be very powerful in certain situations, lots of times you don't necessarily want to pop that power right away. For instance, in this situation, brassbeat can leave it and pretty much instant clear the rest of the level. Looks like that's about what happened. And additionally, you can use stuff like the point boost. Wait till the point boost is in an advantageous position, since the pink point boost peg moves around with every shot. You can use a lot of that to your advantage. Just subtle strategy, things like that, definitely can make a difference over the course of the run.
For sure. Speaking of making a difference over the course of the run, there's also some really basic best practices that brassbeat is using to kind of ensure that their shots go faster. You won't see them doing a lot of shots that bounce the ball back up into the air for a long time, and that's because a ball in the air is not hitting anything. We don't really want it to be doing that for very long. They'll also be aiming the ball into a bucket, one of those point buckets at the end of the level every time that they can, so that it doesn't bounce around in those bumpers. And they'll also try to be aiming either directly into the point bucket or outside of it, so that it's not bouncing off of the point bucket into other stuff.
Exactly, yeah. There's and there's a lot of this. One of the reasons that I think Peggle can be quite compelling, if you're into this type of gameplay at all, is that a lot of this is stuff that just takes a lot of practice to kind of feel out, and there's not really a lot of, again, tricks, or again, the skips are very minor things you can do to improve, but in general it just comes down to playing smart and kind of feeling out the flow of the gameplay, which I think is really nice and very refreshing to just be able to sit down and speed run the game without much preparation.
Yeah, we actually, this is a good time, I think, to talk about community efforts to make the game accessible and fun to play. So we have a lot of different types of strat documents, which are kind of just collections of all the different strategies that we've made. And we have video and text guides up on speedrun.com. So there's a lot of really good ways to get into this game if you want to be interested in speedrunning it. There's also a very active Twitch community, so lots of good opportunities to watch the game.
Yeah, and I guess I could take a second here to talk about how this is not necessarily directly related to the gameplay, but the Peggle speedrun community has had a big growth over the past couple of years. And I think, saying herself, you were one of the earliest adopters from that kind of wave of players.
No,
right?
I was actually here like a year before that.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, so I didn't know that. Yeah, so
I know.
Yeah, so there's definitely a group of dedicated speedrunners who've been in the community for years now, right? And then over the past couple of years, I'm one of the kind of newer players, one of the newbies in the end, and a lot of that was brought about by a large streamer, Doug, who has done a lot of Peggle on his stream. So, just a fun fact. And yeah, it has it's been, I think, a big, fun journey for a lot of people joining the community and figuring stuff out.
For sure. Yeah, it was really fun to see the community explode. Yeah. Our world record holder in Deluxe any percent, Panaha, was here far before that, though. Lots of credits to him for, really pioneering this game.
Yeah, and it's pretty insane. brassbeat is one of the top players in the world, and watching any of the top players play is pretty insane. Panaha, the record holder from Finland, has a fairly dominant record as it stands currently, though. His time is it 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes ahead of second place?
With Rich's new second place literally last night. I think it's 3.5 now.
Yeah, and so certainly there's a bunch of different kind of tiers of play, and Panaha has most other people beat right now. But it's certainly, there's been big strides from everyone, including brassbeat here, who has surpassed almost everyone else and become one of the best in the world.
By the way, can we get some Gerald in the chat? We need some Jolt in the chat, or the one's gonna be invalid. So
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Don't
there's-
invalidate Brass's run, people.
There's a bunch of community memes, and yeah, Brassbeat is talking about on 5-2, Gerald the fish is the name that we've collectively given to the fish, who it's kind of an interesting level in the sense that there's not a lot of obstacles like this that just move around on their own with their own weird properties. But if this with this fish, you'll see it in a second, but when you hit the fish with a ball, it will it'll actually move across the screen and kind of dynamically change the level. There are actually more of those levels towards the end of the game, and we'll see a few of them that are somewhat infamous, but for now, this one is fairly tame.
oh god.
The fish just acts as a
no.
block.
Ah, bollocks.
Ooh, this is a bit risky. Aw.
This is certainly this and again with a lot of these levels, you never know which ones are going to give you trouble. There are some levels that are somewhat reliably difficult, but a lot of times it can just be somewhat a surprise when a level comes out of nowhere and gives you some trouble.
Although I think that one was Gerald exacting revenge for just calling
Yeah.
him tame. I
Yeah.
don't think that was Brass's fault.
Yeah. But yeah, let's see.
Actually, let's talk about a weird hidden mechanic of Clawed Lobster. You saw there when you hit the green that Claude brings up these flippers at the bottom of the screen that you can use like you would in a pinball machine. You know, flip around and make the ball go places. But another mechanic that some of you who might have casually played Peggle might not know is that any orange pegs that are in the path of those flippers will be redirected to new pegs in the level. And in certain levels, that's actually really helpful. I'd say
Yeah.
5-2 is definitely one of them, and now we're going on to 5-3. You'll also see that here.
Yeah, there are a lot of little weird quirks of the master's powers there. So, and yeah, Claude, one of the Claude split definitely can be one of the trickier ones. Yeah, and this level as well is another one where a lot of moving pegs. I mean, we've seen plenty of levels like that, but definitely as we get going further and further in the game, there's a lot more kind of levels that have a bit of a gimmick or some sort of twist with moving pegs, moving obstacles. That certainly can make them a little tricky, or at least a little less predictable. For all of our talk of strategies and stuff earlier, where the physics are deterministic, when you have moving pegs, then it is a lot harder to time things 100% consistently every time. So yeah.
Yeah. So for example, basically, they ruin the bucket timings. So Brass did all the way to the left and all the way to the right with one tap in that last level, but didn't get any free balls out of it because the moving pegs will just change the outcome every single time. So
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I definitely got the strat that I wanted, and I did not tap one time too many for it.
Yeah.
Peggle.
Yeah, this level 5-4, as you're seeing now, has a really actually a couple really cool shots on it. The good thing is sometimes though, even if you do like mess up on your first attempt, lots of times for some of the openers, if it is early enough in the level, you can just restart, get another attempt right away. And a lot of time, even if you mess up the second shot in a chain, if you maybe have 2 or 3 shots at the start of a level that you want to use, well, even if you mess up on like the second, you're generally still getting value out of it. It just may not be the value you were wanting. Okay.
I messed that one up as well.
Well, good example of what poetry was just talking about. There we go. Very cool pixel shot.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting that you can sort of get good results out of literally doing the same shot twice.
Yeah, there are a few cases like that where sometimes just doubling down on something ends up actually working.
Oh, weird quirk also of the Peggle rules. If you go onto SRC and you see the bottom corner has to be around, why is that on the recording? The reason for that is because you can actually enable the coordinate system in Peggle, and you can see exactly what pixel you're aiming at if you just enable it. So the rules, of course, disable being able to look at that while you're doing an active run, but it's really good.
Yeah, and currently their brassbeat actually has the FPS counter.
By the way, this level, this could be wicked.
Yep.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so on 6-1, there's an insane kind of shot you can do here.
Okay, I didn't quite get it. You can like get the third slide on that shot if you get the timing right. There's a few frames that work, and at best you're aiming for a 3-frame window.
Yeah.
As you can see, this game runs at 100 FPS, so a 3-frame window is not a lot to work with.
Yeah, and this the level there with that cool shot we just saw. Even if you get the timing not perfect, you still get a bunch of value out of that first shot.
And we also just saw Renfield is on the scene now because we've gone past another 5 levels. And Renfield's power is Spooky Ball, which means when you hit the green, the ball will become spooky. The ball bucket will get a cover over it. And wherever the ball drops down at the end of the shot, it will come back up top and go down and just do another round in the same shot. So you don't get control over that, but you do get a peg's worth of efficiency. You want to talk about the Who-like properties, Poetry?
Yeah, so it's kind of a bit of a meme in the community, actually, that Renfield, the pumpkin here. There is a certain element of aim assist that you do get, but the level to which I don't actually know if we, at least brassbeat probably knows more about it than anyone else, but in terms of the exact mechanics of it, sometimes it seems like the pumpkin power will give you an insane aim assist shot on its second go through, where it clears half the level, gets you 2 balls back for free, can really change the course of a level. At other times, and especially in the sequel to this game, the other main entry of the series, Peggle Knights, at other times it seems like he doesn't know how to play the game at all, and the power will sometimes just not work at all. So it's very, very somewhat luck in that case. Not really any way to control it.
We definitely know that there's aim assist, especially because because in Peggle Knights, they nerfed his power so much that he becomes the 3rd master that shows up instead of the 6th. A little bit of a downgrade there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. As we're kind of going through a couple levels here, the Renfield levels themselves are normally not too much of a massive spike in difficulty, but a lot of them just kind of have a lot of just seemingly randomly strewn about pegs. Generally, I think these levels are not the worst. Generally not going to be run killers, but it's just something that something that if you get a little too relaxed, you might find yourself in a bad spot on some of them.
Especially on like the Renfield split, you can just randomly be a minute behind of where you were when you started.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, the next level has a quite interesting strat in that the goal of it is quite unusual. Both greens here are predetermined, so we're gonna get this spooky ball and then we're gonna get it to clear out. Basically, what that does is it allows us to use the spooky ball in a way that's more likely to be useful rather than like getting stuck into this big V shape twice and just falling down the middle on the turnaround.
Yep. Yeah.
And as you can see, that V shape is full of blue pegs. That is predetermined, actually. This is one of the few levels in which the structure of the blue pegs is completely predetermined in terms of there are certain locations that cannot be any other color. So you kind of have to, if you're playing casually, dig through it and hope for some good Renfield shots. But as brassbeat just did there's a great strat for it.
Okay. And as we're kind of entering the final Renfield level here, we are at this point a little over halfway through the game's levels. And this is another level 6-5 where there's quite a few different strategies that have been developed by different players. And one thing that I think is interesting, we've talked about the strategies quite a bit now. All the kind of notation, different styles of strategies is generally something that is pretty easy to just share with other players. But even with that, there are plenty of levels like this one where there are multiple different versions of the strategies, and sometimes it just comes down to preference as far as what a certain player might use on the level.
Yeah, preference, and also sometimes the generation of the level itself. There are certain times where certain openers may be equivalent, but potentially there's a hard orange in a spot that one opener gets and the other doesn't, or there's a lot of oranges clumped up in a spot that one opener gets that another doesn't. So you might have to, on the fly, switch openers if you know multiple.
Yep. As we're kind of getting into the Tula split, the 7th set of levels out of the 11 in the game, I will take a second to mention another fan favorite character is coming up on the next level. So not on this one, not on 7-1, but on the next level, 7-2, is one of the community's favorite characters who has been, again, like all the characters on the backgrounds of the levels, just been given a name by the community. And his name, we'll see him in a second. On the next level, there's a caterpillar who has been named Huey by the community. And so anytime a run reaches this point, it's kind of a meme or a tradition almost to say "Hi Huey" at the very start of the level.
Can we get some hi Hueys in the chat?
Yeah. So yeah.
As much as poetry tries to make it a bit lighter, you guys are gonna have to say "Hi Huey" or else the run's gonna be invalid.
Yeah. Yeah. But
on the SRC rule page, if you don't believe me, check it out.
Yeah, but it seems like we do have a couple of donations. I think we probably could open that up for that a bit here. Does that seem good to you guys?
Yeah, wonderful time around.
Okay.
All right then. Well then, I got a $20 from Auntie Aaron there, who just finished up our previous race there, saying thank you for all you do and keep up the good work. And then we got $50 from Mannequin Z, with a no. I figured you guys might want to shout that one out there. So, just a reminder, no comment there. But if you do want to put any of your donations towards an incentive, just go ahead and mention that in the comments, and I'll let you guys get back to it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And
Mannequin, thank you for the really generous donation. Mannequin Z is a member of our community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have quite a few people from the community here hanging out as we're running here, and yeah.
Let's explain how Tula works real quick, also.
Yeah, feel free.
So the greens in this in the Tula split will, when you hit them, hit a certain amount of oranges that are close to that green on the screen. The amount of oranges is determined by the amount of oranges you have already hit. So you're going to be seeing brass probably most of the time try to hit the greens pretty early on in the level, or at least one of the greens pretty early on in the level. However, you might see them save one until the end, because sometimes a green is in an easier to reach place than the final orange, so then they can just use the green instead. In Peggle Knights, though, Tula will always hit two orange pegs, no matter how many pegs there are left on the screen. And as you can imagine, saving them for the end can be really useful when pegs are in tricky spots, and it makes her one of the fastest masters in that game.
Yep. Yeah, it is interesting.
The funny thing is, even in Deluxe, Tula is already like one of the strongest masters, especially in the speedrun.
That's true.
Yep.
You may want to talk a bit about the individual master categories.
Yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about that. So, beyond so the most competitive category is the one we're seeing now, which is any percent, which is to play the game on a new save file and complete as quick as possible. With the adventure mode, there are a couple other kind of groups of categories. One of the other popular ones are called we just call them IMs, but that stands for individual master. Using an individual Peggle master in New Game Plus, you can go through the adventure mode of the game again, but the speedrun category for IMs is where you use a single master for the whole game. And that is something that is not programmed into the game as a special achievement or anything, but it's just something that as a speedrun community was added because it does add a bit more variety. If you go through the game with the same masters on their own levels every time, it can get a little, not necessarily boring, but occasionally you want to mix things up. And one way to do that is by, if you have like a favorite Peggle master whose ability you really like and think is fun, you can try to speedrun with just that ability for the whole run. So, for instance, Tula that we're seeing now is the end of the Tula split here. Tula, again, is one of the more powerful of the Peggle masters with her ability, and so her run is one of the quickest, as well as, there are plenty of other categories as well. Like there is a New Game Plus category that is just using any characters in any order on any of the levels in a New Game Plus run, and other things like that.
Yeah. Fun fact, Peggle history. I was there for the creation of all the IMs, and also random master only, which is where you use a random master for every level. I suggested that.
Yeah, there's also some other categories too that are pretty popular. So one of the other categories that is probably the most hardcore set of runs are the Grandmaster runs, which are, and this is something that actually is part of the game's achievement system, you could say. It's a primitive achievement system where it's essentially the equivalent of doing a 100% speed run. Well, there's a couple kind of tiers of it. There's one that is do the game and then complete all the challenges on a new save file. And then there's also what's called Extreme Grandmaster, where you do all of the challenges of the game that are bonus content, a lot of times focusing on points and stuff, which is kind of interesting since we're not really concerned with that in a normal 80% speed run. And then in Extreme Grandmaster, you also have to full clear every level, not just the orange pegs, but clearing every peg off the board. And brassbeat is actually quite an expert at pretty much all of the things we've listed here. Brassbeat is takes time to specialize in a lot of these runs. So.
You definitely did not just see that.
Yeah. The 8-1 level is, I would say, considered by the community one of the more cursed levels of the game. And the background art is a little cursed too, in my opinion. It's just, yeah.
Real cursed.
And yeah, so probably honestly one of the most commonly failed levels. It is certainly not in a situation like this. It can happen and just kind of come out of nowhere.
No shame. No shame. Also, we get to see beloved Warren here. Yep.
Yeah. Warren is one of the other community favorites. Very memed on by the community, but his power, we've seen it once or twice now, is that when he hits a green, the whole idea is that he is like a magician, circus performer kind of deal, and so he has a wheel that we just saw there, and the wheel will give you a different power or bonus based on what you roll. His titular ability is the magic hat that we just saw. But beyond that, he can give you triple score. He can give you just an extra ball, so you basically get refunded the shot. And he can also give you another master's ability randomly. So kind of interesting. Very random in terms of the ability.
Yeah, so that makes him one of the most difficult masters to speedrun, given you just don't know what's coming. There's a 1/4 chance of all of that. And in fact, for the masters, in any percent, Warren functions differently in New Game Plus because he can only roll the master's powers that you've already done. So there's 2 more masters we'll have coming up with 2 more different powers that Warren cannot take advantage of in any percent.
Yep.
Whoa,
By the way, like, not getting those last 2 masters is quite a big nerf.
Yeah, yeah.
It really
The-
is.
Yeah. And so, yeah, to again reiterate, or for anyone who might have missed it, the game is 55 levels long, split into 11 parts of 5. So we are on the 8th part here, about 3/4 of the way through. And there are 10 masters, 10 Peggle masters. The 11th set is what is called the master levels, where even in a new game, new save file, you can use whatever master you want on those levels. Normally, you have a predetermined master on their own set of levels. So we're in the Warren split, where we can only use Warren the rabbit. But in the master levels on New Game or New Game Plus, you can use whatever master you like. And we will, once we get to that, we'll talk more about why that is very crucial on some of the levels. Okay. So, we're kind of drawing towards the end of this split. Trying to think, say to yourself, are there any things as far as strategies that we haven't touched on? I think we kind of covered a lot of the basics and stuff.
Yeah, we're only going to get into the really interesting strategies when it comes to like Helix and Paw Reader. And all that.
Yeah.
Lots to look forward to.
Yeah. The thing is, and as much as a lot of us in the community love Peggle, one of the things that is that can be painful when you have run it a lot. This is only ever really problem once you really are looking for very tight improvements. Is that the biggest difficulty spikes are right at the end of the game. There's a couple massive difficulty spikes, and for most players, for most speedrunners, it is not really going to matter that much because, again, most players are, especially starting out, going to have a lot of losses, and the biggest way to improve your time is just to cut out those losses and just get better at the kind of core gameplay. But what ends up happening is that once you have it optimized to a certain extent, the later spikes in difficulty can mean you go a whole run playing super well, and then a coin toss can kind of determine your run. And I say that because quite literally a coin toss can sometimes ruin your run. So
to explain exactly what that means, we haven't really
Basically,
seen it this run yet.
this is the coin toss.
Oh yeah, okay.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Basically, if you fool with...
Yep.
It's not quite a 50-50. We have no idea what it genuinely is.
Yeah.
But when you hit
My
nothing
personal
with the ball,
theory is that it kind of works like Protect in Pokemon. So if you have to flip multiple times, your odds worsen.
Yeah. It. But yeah, that's kind of a mechanic just in the game, just so that if you completely miss on a shot, you a lot of times will get the ball back.
By the way, I'm gonna try something wicked.
Okay. Yeah, this is let's see here. I'll interrupt.
That's basically you just saw the fireball, and I basically tried a sort of new-ish idea that's kind of got some ground because of a certain individual level event that happened. Poetry. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much credit because I was not the one who did all the work. But recently there was a kind of community-wide event we did where there were some bounties put on the line for improving some of the individual level times of this game. Because just like some other games, the individual levels can be played in speedrun too, and some people actually prefer that because you really focus in on the specific level, the specific layouts, and it can be. It's not my personal cup of tea, but it is certainly impressive and interesting. Even for someone like me who mainly runs other things, I still have a lot of fun looking at the insane records that people can set on specific levels.
looks like we have another donation coming in here.
Yep.
Hey, so yeah, it looks like we got another donation from your community. We got Dreg giving $20 and saying, "Hi Huey,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Hi, Huey.
Yeah, so again.
Drake, by the way, was sort of the person who came up with Huey as a name.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of
So
people
shout
in
out
the
to
community-
Drake. He has otherwise like almost zero binding with the Peggle community, but they've been absolutely. I'm missing a word. Hang on.
Critical to the development of kind of the meme culture.
Yeah.
Going on here.
Yeah, I guess we can just put it like that. That works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Imagine
they
actually
organized a
being able to
tournament
speak
once where
English.
you could only use Claude. It was a disaster.
Stuff like that, yeah. And yeah, brassbeat is we've been kind of talking about just talking about stuff in general. Brassbeat is tearing through these Cinderbottom levels. Cinderbottom, kind of interesting. So yeah, the fireball we've seen now several times. Probably the strongest power if you use it well. It's a very high skill, very highly skill-based power. But if you're able to use it, it can save an insane amount of time. I think this split is probably one of the ones where you can save the most time out of the whole run if you just get in some insane fireball shots. Because you're really only limited.
Yeah, I've seen almost sub 4-minute splits of this, and given that there's 5 levels, that is insane.
Yeah, you're really only limited with Cinderbottom's power, the fireball, but with how good of an angle, how good of a timing, and a bounce you can get. Because otherwise, you can just clear really sometimes literally entire levels with just a couple of fireballs. So yeah.
Speaking of times, also, maybe we should mention a really cool thing that happened the other day.
Yep.
Kind of the point at which you become considered like a really, really good runner is if you're anywhere close to or under an hour for the entire game. And just the other day, our top 10 all became sub hours. So congrats to everybody who did that.
Yep. A year ago, I believe it was either no one or it was just Panaha, the top runner of the game. And then within the past year, it is now to the point where the top 10 is all sub 1 hour. And it is kind of a nice, I think Peggle works as a speedrun game, at least, again, if you're into this type of gameplay, at least. I think it does work as a speedrun game, partially because of its length, being 55 levels long, about an hour long, once you kind of have nailed down the gameplay. It's not going to be an insanely long speedrun. It's also not over in 5 minutes, right? It's just something you can kind of sit down, kind of relax with. Although certainly, once you're looking for very minute improvements, maybe it's less relaxing then.
True. And if you want to kick it into hyperdrive, Peggle has a couple of fun quote-unquote cheat codes. You can type in words and then have the game change in either a minor or very major way. One of them, and you guys can and should do this at home, is typing in the word Scott. If you type in the word Scott, the game goes really quickly. You can complete the game in less than half the time you would need to.
Yeah, it's a built-in cheat code, which obviously disallowed for normal any percent runs, but there's a separate category where cheats are allowed, and that can be quite fun to do. So yeah, we're heading out of the Cinderbottom split here into the final master split with Who, and then we have levels after that. But I don't know, brassbeat, if you want to talk about what you're doing here.
So basically, the thing that I was going for I couldn't go for it because I got a Zen ball on turn 1. In many cases, I would reset a level over that, but I didn't this time. We'll see how it backs out, but basically, there's interesting thing about this level is there's a handful of packs are like actually fully covered by that spinning cane in the middle. Like you can't directly shoot at it. And it turns out 3 of those 5 packs are guaranteed to be orange. So usually the strat that I go for is to use a pixel shot that you set up on the ice cream over there, to which guarantees that you get 2 of them, and then the one that's remaining is one on the bottom that you can usually pick up quite easily. But yeah, I had to YOLO that the level that time a bit. And in this case, it worked out. So
yeah, that's something that definitely takes a lot of kind of just getting a feel for the game and knowing the layouts ahead of time. So brassbeat made a call there to take a bit of a risk by not resetting, right? And sometimes, obviously, it's going to be quicker if you don't have to reset a level and redo the first shot or two. But it can be a risk if you're not super comfortable with the layout. It can be a bit of a risk.
Do we have a little bit of a lull? Because we have an exciting announcement.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, all right there. I hope I didn't jump in too early there, but we got a new little announcement here for our next race here, the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. We've got a new incentive just posting right now. We're gonna do stairs versus elevator. So if you guys want to see which one of those is going to win there, go ahead, get your donations in. Make sure just to mention which side do you want. Do you want Cloud to do, work on leg day, or just press a button? It's up to you guys.
Woohoo! So get in your donations for that, people.
Okay. Let's see, Brass, were you going to mention anything else about the past level or this one?
I guess there isn't anything super serious, anything super necessary to talk about, but I guess what we could sort of look at next is basically the way how whose power works is the Zen Ball is how does it find good shots? Well, if you would think about how they would do that in 2008, then basically they just did something rather blunt, which is optimizing a bunch of amongst a bunch of like I'm lost my words a bit. Basically, it's if you try to make a shot, it's gonna roll for 240 slightly nudged shots and then pick the one that gets the best score. Which is kind of a critical detail that it goes for score, because in particular the point boost is worth a lot of points, so the Zen Ball tends to be a bit attracted to that.
Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. And also, important context, oranges are also worth more than blues, so that's why it still often ends up being really good.
Yeah, the who is, I think, especially when you're kind of just learning the game, generally comes across as one of the, if not the strongest master, especially when you're kind of still learning a lot of the stuff. And I guess I should point out, we are now on what I think almost everyone would consider the hardest level in the entire game here. At the end of the second to last split, you have the infamous Zen Frog level, with the frog in the background. And this is, I think, at least out of probably, if you looked at I imagine at least, I don't think anyone has done this, but if you were to look at the top 10 runners and all of their runs, this is probably the most common place to die for runs that make it this far, at least. Yeah, it is a very, very brutal run killing level, potentially. And the reason why, you can probably tell, is because there's a million moving pegs, it seems, when you look at it.
Yeah, and so a lot of the time you want to not hit the who too early in this level, because who might sort of mess up the structure of what you're going for, and also at the end of the level, the oranges are worth a lot because there's a multiplier that increases with every orange you hit, and so who might go for those oranges instead of biasing towards purple and a lot of blues, potentially.
Yeah. Okay, wow, that was a clutch shot. Let's see. Might be running a little bit of... Okay. So, brassbeat using some, what I would say are the Grandmaster style of play skills to get some free balls there, refunded by hitting them into the bucket, keeping the level going. Instead of losing, I was able to clutch it there and make it to the final set of levels in the game. And yeah, this is now the master split, where again, we're 5 levels left, and you're able to use whichever master you want. Generally, I think most of the top players use Cinderbottom on this one because, well, there's a lot of kind of blocking bricks. These ramps, or these the spiral kind of pattern all around is generally something where, as you saw there, getting a good fireball in there can really just shred this entire level. And this level used to be, I think, considered one of the most difficult in the game. It also killed quite a lot of runs that made it this far, but as a community, we came up with a bunch of strats for it, and now I think it tends to actually be one of the more consistent of the master levels. At least I would say. I don't know.
For sure.
What am I doing?
Yeah, and all these master levels, to be clear, are pretty difficult. You can see, just like the first level, this one is also a classic Cinderbottom pick because, well, there's a lot of blocking pegs, right? Anytime you have a lot of blockers, where you would take multiple shots normally to work your way down the line. In this level, Cinderbottom can carve a path right through.
Yeah, but you were also seeing there brassbeat use some very specific shots that bounced off from the ceiling back down and made some really nice, neat-looking slides. Those were partially developed by Foe Passerby, one of our community members, so thank you for doing that, Foe. Yeah.
Actually, the strats that most people use for that are the ones Foe made, but I do something quite different.
Yeah. Yeah,
classic brass. Very cool.
Yeah, but this level here, also a very tricky one, kind of like some of the other levels. There's a little bit of a gimmick to this one, which is that none of the pegs are moving, but this UFO that you can see is moving across the screen, and when you get a ball into one of those kind of purple portals at the top sides, we'll probably see that in a moment, then the ball will pop out. Yeah, there we go, wherever the UFO was. And that makes it just one more thing you have to kind of consider when you're timing your shots. This level, very difficult. All of these master levels are probably the biggest overall spike in difficulty, even if Zenfrog from the previous split was the single hardest level.
Yeah, and so most people use Who here, just because, you know, the unpredictability of the UFO often makes it so that Who can be a better bet than doing anything else.
Mm-hmm. This is a very dominant performance on this level. 7 balls left right now, and only 1 peg means that even if brassbeat misses, which he doesn't miss there, it's still pretty set up well. This level, just like the last one, has a bit of blockers, these kind of obstacles in the background that we have to find a way to shoot around. But like a lot of other levels that have just a bunch of static pegs for the most part, we do have strats to handle this, and brassbeat is making good use of those here.
Quick work of this level. Everyone, this is a master playing right now.
Yeah, and so we're about to be heading into the final level in a moment here. The final level is one of the most intimidating looking ones in the game for sure. And I would say I haven't asked Brass ahead of time which strategy he's using. There's several kind of different strategies, and so let's see here. Okay, brassbeat is going for the classic Cinderbottom play. And so here, let's wait a moment and see this level. Normally a very difficult level, because you generally need to carve your way through the entire helix here, and that can be quite almost impossible when you're just starting out and don't know how to work with it. But you can see brassbeat here with a single fireball pretty much clears the entire thing, and yeah, there are quite a few different strategies for this level. That being one.
Yeah, so another pretty easy to execute strat, as long as you're willing to reset the level a lot, is to use Splork and wait for there to be 2 greens in the helix that are somewhat evenly spaced. one at the top and one in the middle, and those will clear out most of the helix as long as you shoot them when they're in the middle. That can get you a really fast level, but you do have to reset with the proper greens, so that can sometimes lose you time.
Yeah, and I think Brassbeat here is doing a bit of a show off.
The full clear!
Yeah, Brassbeat is going to full clear the last level, which is just kind of an extra little bit of a show off to truly demolish the last and one of the hardest levels of the game. So
Ultra Extreme Fever.
Yeah, so good game. Can we get some GGs for Brassbeat?
GGs in the chat.
Mm-hmm. And this is
also there is a fun way to clear that helix in one shot. Foe made a shot for that. But
yeah,
there's a bunch of runners who have actually committed to the one-shot strategy, which is something that's actually like literally pixel perfect and frame perfect.
It's ridiculous.
But I'm not one of them, so
yeah.
I'm not gonna go and try that.
Yeah, and yeah, this is for having a few fails, this is still close to a sub-hour time. So very, very impressive time here.
Super impressive.
Mm-hmm. And I guess Brassbeat, thanks for having us. But do you have any other words? I mean, it's up to you then.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's been the run for me. It's been nice having you two on for commentary, and
happy to do it.
Yeah, so I guess I'll end here, and next up I thought I heard people say was Final Fantasy VII. So
ooh, that's hype.
Yeah, sounds pretty hype. Good luck with that, and goodbye everyone.